In this series of videos, we're going to be going over some of the general features of Benchmark, how to use it, and how to do certain processes within it. To assist us as we go through this process, I'll be referring to three documents which you have as PDFs in your that came on your CD when you got Benchmark. One is the demo book, which is a series of examples of how to do specific things with inputs and outputs that give you a feel for how the various routines operate. Also, the full Benchmark manual, which is 488 pages of immense detail on how each of the routines works. And finally, the Benchmark mini manual, which is what most people who are familiar with Benchmark use to help them remember the various commands they use in their day-to-day operations. In order to show you some of the core features of Benchmark, I'm first going to double-click on Coordinate Geometry to open that program up, and then the next thing I'm going to do is to load a job. So I'm going to go, in fact, the first thing I'll do is I'll go 123 minus to show you the job directory for the subdirectory that we're in, which has 20 jobs in it. And the only job that's alive right now is the lot sizing demo files. So what I'm going to do now is the 124 minus command, and I'm going to load job number 5, which is that job. And in this case, I have a choice of just the coordinates, or I can include descriptions and elevations if I want to, and the various matrices of the information that's there. In this case, I just want my north and east coordinates. Now, at this point, I want to print everything that I'm going to do for the record. So the command to turn printing on is 1 minus. Not a heck of a lot happens when I turn 1 minus on, except now everything that I put to the screen is also going to a big print storage area where it can be printed later on. So for instance, the first thing I'm going to do here is list all my points. So I'll use the 210 minus command and just list all the points in this particular job. And let's say for some reason I just wanted to print that right now. I would hit the 2 minus command and would open up the print routine. In this case, I only have one page of printing, as you can see down here in this corner. And this is the stuff that's going to get printed. This is kind of these commands up here in this corner let me kind of page through so I can look at what I'm going to print, etc. And when I want to print it, I just click on the printer here, and it will output to my Windows printer, whichever printer I designated in my Windows setup. Once I print, everything goes out to the printer. And then I close this window here. I come back to my operating screen, and that stuff that's printed is now out of that buffer, and I would need to input the 1 minus command to reactivate printing to continue on with what I'm doing. Another thing I wanted to show you here in the way of operator assistance, the command numbers are obviously difficult to remember, so if you right click, you can see that I get sort of a spurred out menu area here where I can see all the different commands that make up turning printer on. Printer off is kind of a misnomer here. This is really when it does turn the printer off, but it also takes you to that printing page that we just looked at, and allows me to print. Sometimes you may not be interested in seeing what you entered. You only want to see results. So you can say print output only. This is sort of a modification on the 1 minus command where you don't see what you entered, you only see results. Okay. Most people are not going to use this. They're going to use either they're not going to print or they're going to print everything. So I can work my way down through these various menu choices and see all the commands that relate to them. So this is a very useful tool for those people who need to be reminded or need prompting as to what commands do what, because it's very difficult to remember all the command numbers. There are just a zillion of them. The next feature I want to show, if we come up to the right-hand corner here and we left-click on our mouse, we get a bunch of commands here. One of these choices is edit here. Now let's pretend for a minute that I had forgotten to turn my printer on with the 1- command, and I had a whole bunch of stuff that I had accumulated here, and I wanted to capture it all. So in this case, I can come over here, hit the edit, go down to select all, and you notice my whole screen lights up here. Now this means that everything that I've done so far is now going to be captured. So if I come back up here and say copy, and I click here, everything in that whole screen area, and this could be, think about this, because this screen is kind of a perpetual screen. As you work, it scrolls down, and so you're accumulating all the work you did in this giant page, okay? So I can capture this giant page no matter how big it is, and then I can go out to Microsoft Word or just my little notepad application, which is in Windows, and click on it and say paste, and lo and behold, everything that I've done here appears in this document, which I can now either save or print or do anything else with. So the point I'm trying to make here is there are several ways that several tools available for you to be able to save your work, both printed and just as files, whatever you want to do. So it's pretty versatile, and it's one of the things that makes Windows nice to work with. In this case, I'm just going to close this down and not save it. Several people running the benchmark program have also called with questions about how to set the screen up so that the benchmark screen fills the screen as I'm doing here. In a lot of cases, this little bar has appeared right about here, and there's other stuff over on the side, and they just want they want to see the benchmark screen filled up. And so you go to defaults here and go to layout. You can set your window size here to for width and height in order to fill up the window. These particular numbers, 125 by 58, seem to do a pretty good job of filling the window up. The screen buffer thing here and the window's position don't seem to be notable here, but what I wanted to make clear to you is that in addition to setting the window size here in the defaults area, you also need to set it in the properties area. So you need to set it both places to be about the same size. And when you do, it'll fill the screen out, and it will accomplish having that screen fully occupied with the program. In this review of some of the fundamental operations of Benchmark, coming into the main menu, we've talked a lot in other video segments about how boundary traverse and coordinate geometry work. Initializing a subdirectory for job storage. A lot of you who are using Benchmark now already have directories set up on your hard drive with jobs in them, and the current coordinate geometry and boundary traverse programs will read those directories just fine. When it's time to create a new directory, you simply go in here. Usually you're going to create it on a hard drive. So, and usually the drive you put it in is going to be C, so you enter C. Then you enter the subdirectory name. The one thing you want to remember here is, of course, those of you, you've all been using Windows a long time, we're used to having these long directory names. Since this is a conversion of a DOS program, the other thing you have to remember here is that this subdirectory name, when you create it, needs to be 8 characters or less and no spaces. So we can just say job 101, which is a nice 7 characters. In Presto, it says it's working, and what it's doing is creating a new job directory with 20 empty job slots in it called jobs 101. Now, it initializes 20 jobs, but you can add jobs beyond that and expand that job directory as much as you want. So that's just a way of getting a job directory going. Utility programs 1 is pretty straightforward. We double click here, bring up a command. We'll right click here. We have stuff for turning the printer on and off and kicking up a new sheet. We have triangle solver. We have curve staking, a little earthworks program, stadia reduction, vertical curve reduction. And these Utilities 1 and Utilities 2 are covered extensively and in more detail in chapters, I think it's 16 and 17 of the big manual. I'd suggest looking in there because you'll see there's actually a lot more functionality within these two utility programs than even what you see here. So here we're going to quit, come back to here, we'll go to Utilities 2. We'll right-click again. We have Circular Curve Solver, 3-point problems, vertical curves, stakeouts, and different kinds of spiral curve stakeout, that kind of thing. So these utilities are in the program. They were developed over a number of years. People liked them and wanted to keep them. So you know, Benchmark is essentially a collection of just mathematical routines to solve problems. The job copy and subdirectory utilities, again, allow you to copy a benchmark job file, show directory of jobs, delete jobs, merge job files. These are pretty self-explanatory things. Copy a lot description file. We'll talk about lot description files. Well, you've seen that already. Those are created with the 130- command. So you have quite a set of utilities here for managing your job data within your hard drive, and that's really what this menu is all about. I think we've already covered the setup menu in another video, but I thought that I'd bring it up again once more and go through a quick review here. These settings are what I call kind of global settings, depending on how you do things and how you want Benchmark to receive data when you're entering it and how you want it to output information. Each of these commands generally exists within the program you're using, so you can change these settings on the fly if you want to. But sometimes it's nice to come in here and put this information in and kind of get a set of standards that the company uses or that you want to use, and not have to think about what Benchmark is going to do with information as you're entering it. And so these are there to help you accomplish that. The configure menu allows you to do things like change the screen colors. Right now we've got white on blue and these sorts of things. You can change them on the fly. And there is a color table if you want to do that. So if you want some odd color combination that suits your look, you're happy to have that if you want it. We'll leave this and go back to the main menu. And last item here is the description table. And here you just need to understand that these descriptions are intended to go with your points, so that when you create a description code and you put a terminology, you can also have a block for that description and what point layer it goes on, that kind of thing. So these point descriptions from an alphanumeric point of view are attached to the point for any display purposes that you want, both tabular data and graphical if you're sending it out to an AutoCAD drawing. And if you want the actual symbology to go with it, you can assign a block to it and you can assign a point layer to it. And you're allowed up to 1,000 point descriptions, so you can kind of create these. We don't have much in this particular table here, but a lot of DOS benchmark users from long ago have these tables set up, and the table is the same and it'll be recognized and you can use it. So there's a section in the manual on how to set up a description table, and you should use it. And this description table is intended to be universal, so it's a shared item, and anyone can use it, and you can put it up on say a network drive so that everyone can get at it if they want to. And that pretty much covers the other items on the menu that you're likely to visit at various times. And we hope this helps you get through some of the startup issues with using the program.